Hi all and welcome to my channel. This video is intended for the beginners that use gamepads to control your quadcopter. And as far as I know, nobody did basically any kind of tutorial on this, and this is something I found really interesting and it's a must-see if you ask me, because if you if you use your gamepad to control, what's the difference between a radio and the controller? Basically none. You do have two sticks to control, but what's the issue? The issue is that on your gamepad you have just so little movement to control all the range of your controls. And if you if you don't adjust your rates, you'll have an incredibly hard time to control your quadcopter, especially when you are a beginner. Uh, it will be so hard that it will be probably impossible to control it. So let's see what do we have here. This is a FPV Freerider. This is the older version, or the first version of FPV Freerider. And this is the newest update at the time of filming. If you have maybe an older version, it's more or less the same, but you will be missing the two-tower map. So go ahead, and if you don't have the latest version, you can download it for free if you bought the full version. And to follow this tutorial, you will need the full version. The demo version doesn't let you change any settings, and it will be basically useless, especially if you're using a gamepad, because you cannot change rates, you cannot change anything. So let's see some of the first stuff you have to do to get yourself in shape and some decent settings. First of all, you will need to connect your USB controller, and that you have to do before you start the sim. Okay, and now let's see the basic setup. You have to go to calibrate your controller, and now, as you can read, center all the sticks. That means you just don't touch them. They should be basically centered by themselves. And you click OK. Next, you have to pull the left stick on the left. And you can see this little circle moving down. And you click OK. Next, you push the stick up. Always the left. We're still on the left. And click OK. Now, the right stick, sorry, you push them left. You see circle and click OK. And the last thing is the right stick up and OK. That should be it. Now on this screen you can test to see if the sticks move as they should. There are some trims and there are some scaling, but I don't think, well, at least on my controller, there wasn't any need to do so. So that's it, and we click OK. And that's the first thing you have to do. Then let's see the next thing. As you're using the gamepad, as I mentioned before, you have to have the throttle 0 at center. Why is that? You can have it at the bottom, and that's the real thing you should use if you have a receiver, a good radio, because you want to start the throttle at the bottom. But if you use a gamepad, I found it incredibly hard to basically push down to get to my 0 throttle. So throttle 0 at center. So you basically will have half of the movement of the throttle, but you will just have to push it up. That zone is on. Okay, let's see now the custom settings. If we get into the custom settings, you have some rates, control, camera control, and physics. And in the lower left we have expo. Expo should be on if you're using a gamepad. For radio and for expert users you can go to linear, but for a gamepad expo should be on. Loss auto zoom, it doesn't really matter. This is basically an auto zoom if you're flying in line of sight mode. But we will focus on FPV. Next settings we have FPV Ground Sound or Cockpit that basically will give you the sound from the copter or from your virtual position. I think you should keep the FPV Cockpit sound on. Then we have some presets. In this newer updated version we have Default, Snappy and Snappy 2. Default, useless. If you have a gamepad, as I said, and this is basically the settings you have in the demo version, you won't be able to do much with that. We have Snappy and Snappy 2. What do we need? For starter, I would suggest to go to Snappy, and we'll see some modification you should do. Throttle is basically how much power you will have available on your full movement of the stick. We have 20 to, in this version, 111. For beginners, I would say 35 would be the settings. You don't need more than that because you won't be able to control it. The yaw command is basically the rate your copter will rotate, and this one should be lower too. I would suggest 10 for the starters. Pitch and roll rate, basically the speed your copter will pitch or and roll. This one also should be drastically lowered. For starter, for beginners, I would say 20. So, self-leveling, for us it doesn't really matter. It's basically the power or the maximum angle your copter will be able to move while you in auto level mode. We are here talking about acro or not assisted flight, so this one it doesn't really matter for us. Next one is the camera and the field of view. For starters, the angle of 30 degrees is adequate, I would say, and the field of view, well, you can use the 70 or you can just go to 100 from the start because you really want a wider field of view. A wider field of view than 70 will be distorting on your image, but that's the way we fly, so it's up to you. It doesn't really matter, but for flying fast and have a better cognition of your environment, you really want it to be wider. The physics side, I never really touched it, except when I play and just discover, try different masses, how they do. For the drag, angular drag and gravity, we'll leave it as it is. Okay, at this time, well, if you're in a hurry, you basically saw the settings I proposed to you as a beginner to start your flying with. It will be way easier, and you have it will be easier to learn to fly. Of course, as you progress, you will want to adjust those settings, increase the rates, and of course the throttle. But if you have a little bit more time, let's see some other. I will explain a little bit more some of the changes, and I'll show you what kind of flying is with the custom and with the snappy settings, the default settings. Okay, let's see the snappy settings. I won't touch anything, I'll just load the snappy settings and save and exit, and let's go to the first map. It's the desert map. It's probably the one you will first learn to fly. And let's see, how do I do? Keep in mind, I'm flying for 5 or 6 months and I do have pretty decent timing and I have really good control of the copter at this moment. I'm not saying that I'm a pro, not at all, but I'm pretty decent. So let's see how do I do when I have these default settings, the snappy settings. So I'll push a little bit the throttle, and look, if I do the roll, look how fast it is. And we're talking about a small movement basically, and the speed of the movement is just too high for a novice, and even for me, and I can tell you I can fly it really decently, and this is just hard. It's almost impossible for me, as after all this time that I spent into this sim, and for you as a beginner, it's just too much, I think. So that was the roll, single for the pitch. Let's see, just a little movement and I'm away. Just fast, it's too fast to learn. Same go for the yaw. And one of the first issue you will have is pushing the throttle without touching the yaw. And basically it's maybe a tenth of a millimeter that I'm moving the left stick left and right, and I have a huge movement. And the thing that I had an issue at the beginning is when I wanted to push the throttle, I just yaw to some random side, and then I have to compensate, and basically I would, of course, crash. And look, you will crash a lot, don't think. But with the lower rates and throttle, you will be able to learn. Holy shit, it's really hard to control, and I'm not joking, you can try it for yourself. Let's see now with the other settings. How do I do with the proposed settings? So the throttle at around 30-35, I think that's more than enough as a starter. As you progress, of course, you'll get to 80, 111, whatever. Still, with the controller, it's gonna be hard to control anything more than, I don't know, 70, 75. But it's really up to you. If you are good, you'll be able to push your copter harder. You'll say 1, pitch and roll 2.0. The angle, we can leave it at that. Field of view, well, for now I'll leave it. I usually fly, of course, at 100, but let's leave it at 70. I do suggest you go straight away to 100, because I had an issue when I started. I flew for maybe 2-3 weeks with 70, and then I decided, okay, I need more. And I kind of had a headache the first day, because my brain just didn't want to accept the new field of view. So, well, it's up to you. Try one or the other. Let's go. We'll keep it at 70 for now, and save and exit. Save map, desert. Well, if you're like me, I probably spent a few days just trying to get to the first gate. It was just a horrible experience. Well, with lower settings, let's see. I'll gain attitude. This is full throttle at the moment, and you can see it's pretty docile. And let's try the roll. This is full roll. You see how much slower it is. And that basically means I can precisely control how much roll do I want, because the maximum speed of the yaw and of course of the pitch, it's way smaller, so I can actually control it instead of having crazy speed of rotation and not crashing. Same goes for the yaw. With the slower yaw, you will be able to push, and even at the beginning you will always probably push a little bit left and right, but the movement will be so small that you can easily compensate for that. So let's land and let's see what kind of time do I get with this very low settings. Okay, first gate, I pick up slowly the speed and I can be very smooth because I can control how much pitch, roll and yaw I want to input because I have the precision to do it. With the high rates you just don't have it, you have to be really good. So let's see, we've already made a first lap, it's a relatively slow lap, let's try to pick up. I just push a little bit more the throttle. That's 30 seconds a lap, that's already a decent speed. I'm not at the end, I'm not pushing the throttle to the limit. See, we had 11, and with argue you can get probably times around 10 seconds maybe if you use the complete settings. I mean, if you could push and have a really smooth lap. Anyway, so you see, you don't really need super high rates or super high throttle to get a decent time. That's the trick. You need to stay in air. If you crash, there's no laps. Okay, let's see another map now, and the next map I want to show you is the Carpark. Let's see the Carpark map. This one is probably the one you want to spend a lot of time in. And why is that? Because this map has one thing that the other maps doesn't have. Do you know what it is? It's the ceiling. Yes, the nemesis. What's the problem with the ceiling? Especially when you're a beginner. And let's go even for the advanced, and some of the so-called pro pilots will have issue in attitude control. What that means? Well, basically, when you're having a hard turn, if you don't have your attitude control, if you don't have a good attitude control, you will basically slow down and all the thrust will go, well, up, and you will crash into the ceiling as I did now. So you really want to train and to managing your attitude control. Of course, with the lower throttle and lower rates, you will be able to learn it faster. Okay, let's see how we do one lap. Well, the good of the low rates, of course, you have slower speed with less thrust, but you have time to react, and as a beginner you really need the time. When you go in, I lower a little bit the throttle, maintaining the attitude. I have time to roll and even to stop a little bit if I find myself in some trouble. I get here, I need a little bit more throttle to get up, and this is one of the pylons. You're gonna crash a lot when you start flying a little bit faster, even when you get to be way better because of the issue I mentioned before. See? Smoothness, guys. Okay, let's crash. Let's see what kind of time you can get with these settings for one lap or two. Okay, let's start. And you'll see times are not so bad. I did a little bit of training before, and I used to get somewhere around 33-32 seconds per lap, and that's not bad. Especially if you can do more than one lap. One lap is just luck. 5 laps is flying. One thing in this, if you see some other videos of some fast lap, you can notice the bad pilots in that open spot, they will usually gain a lot of attitude. And that's a telltale sign they cannot control their attitude. And the lap they did was a little bit a lucky one. Because you don't really want to gain attitude. You really want to stay more or less on the same attitude. Because, well, you're losing trust, you're losing speed, and you wanna stay and use all that to go where you want. Okay, 36. Let's see if I can do a little bit better. Smoothness, I have time to react. Harder turn. A little bit of slalom. Bit more trust. Throttle. See, I'm on a full trust, throttle, and I still maintain attitude. Okay, that's it, folks. I won't be making any other videos on how to fly, especially in acro mode, because there's already an amazing series of videos about that, and they're just great, and I don't see the point of making. I will post the links in the descriptions, so check it out. They are made by a guy called Joshua Bardwels, and he really did an amazing job on explaining all the basics, and even when you get to be an advanced flyer, he's just a smart guy, and you really want to follow his videos. He's explaining a lot of things, a lot of testing, so that's it from me. So I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial. I hope it helps. Please let me know if changing your rates to low rates and throttle help you out being smoother, faster, and basically having a more enjoyable flight, because I had a super rough time learning with not knowing those stuff, and I basically stuck with I was stuck with the normal default rates and thrust and throttle, and I had a super hard time learning because, well, and that's one of the reasons, that's the main reason I did this video. Another thing you want to know that I didn't mention before is you have some settings here on the left, and you have the self-leveling here or the acro mode. We want to be flying in acro mode, that's the one without helping. And to follow my tutorial, you want to be in high rates. Low rates means that the rates we talked about are way lower, and I really don't know how much higher should they be. Well, I fly in high rates all the time, and I just compensate, and I just, well, not compensate, but basically adjust them. And if you fly in high rates, those settings should work for you. Of course, as you progress, you will be able to have higher rates, higher throttle, a little bit more yaw and pitch. If you're interested in the settings I fly now, and I'm getting really good times, I fly somewhere around throttle, somewhere around 85, it's really not that much higher. I'm somewhere around 1.7, 1.8. Pitch and roll somewhere about 4, somewhere around 4. Angle, well, I play from 60 to 50. Well, I'm exploring. And the field of view is at the maximum 100. So, thanks for watching and happy flying!